So you think the only way to make money in the stock market is when a stock's price shoots up? Well, think again. Today, we are diving into dividends. That's the cash that successful companies can pay out directly to you just for being a shareholder. It's literally your share of the profits sent right to your account.
At its core, a dividend is actually really simple. It's just a company sharing its profits directly with its owners. And if you want a share, guess what? That's you. When a business is doing well and making money, its leaders get to decide if they want to give a piece of those earnings back to the people who invested in them.
The easiest way to picture it is like this. Imagine all of a company's profit is one giant pie. Well, the dividend is your slice of that pie. It's a tangible reward for investing in the company's success. And of course, the more shares you own, the bigger your slice is going to be.
Okay, so whenever a company makes a profit, it faces this huge decision. What do we do with the money? On one hand, they can reinvest it back into the business, fund new research, build new factories, expand into new markets, all to chase even bigger growth down the road. Or they can share that wealth with investors in the form of dividends. And that choice, it tells you a ton about a company's strategy and where it is in its life cycle.
So, how exactly do you get paid? Well, it usually happens in one of two ways. The most common is a classic cash dividend. The money just gets deposited straight into your brokerage account. Super simple. The other main type is a stock dividend. In this case, instead of cash, the company gives you more shares, which increases your overall stake in the business.
And this brings us to a really big question. If the whole point of a company is to grow, why on earth would it just give away its profits? I mean, it seems a little counterintuitive, right? But believe it or not, there are some really powerful reasons why paying a dividend can be one of the smartest things a company can do.
Here's the number one reason. Paying a regular dividend is one of the strongest signals a company can possibly send to the market. It's a public declaration of confidence. The company is basically telling the entire world, hey, we are so profitable and so stable that we can afford to reward our shareholders and still have plenty of cash left over to run the business and grow. It's a huge flex.
And this is exactly why you see this kind of split in the market. On one side, you've got your mature, established companies. Think big banks, utility companies. Their profits are pretty predictable, so they tend to pay out regular dividends. But on the other side, you have these young, hungry, high-growth companies, maybe in tech or biotech. They keep every single penny of their earnings to pour back into research and expansion because they're chasing that explosive, game-changing growth.
Now, getting that dividend cash in your account is great, don't get me wrong, but the real magic, the secret weapon for building long-term wealth, happens when you immediately reinvest those dividends to buy even more shares of that same company.
And if you want to see just how powerful this is, just look at these numbers. This is insane. If you look at the S&P 500 from 2000 to 2020, and you only count the price gains, your return was 136%, which, is not bad at all. But if you had taken every single dividend payment during that time and reinvested it, your return explodes to 247%. You nearly doubled your total gains. That right there is the incredible power of compounding in action.
Okay, so you're on board, you see the potential, but how does the money actually get from the company's bank account to yours? It's not just a switch they flip. The payout actually follows a very specific and very important timeline.
The whole thing unfolds in 4 key steps. First up is the declaration date. That's when the company's board makes it official and announces the dividend. Then you have the ex-dividend date, and we'll come back to that one because it's super important. After that is the record date, which is when the company actually checks its list to see who officially owns shares. And finally, you have the payment date. That's the day the money actually shows up in your account.
Okay, of all those dates, there is one you absolutely have to burn into your memory, the ex-dividend date. Here's the deal, plain and simple. To get that dividend payment, you must own the stock before the ex-dividend date. If you buy the stock on or after that date, you're out of luck. The dividend goes to the person who sold it to you. Think of it as the absolute non-negotiable cutoff. All right, so knowing the what and the how is one thing, but actually investing successfully requires a bit of strategy. There are some key numbers you need to look at and some potential traps you really need to be aware of before you start chasing those dividend stocks. The number one tool you're going to use here is called the dividend yield. All it does is tell you how much you're getting back in dividends each year as a percentage of the stock's price. The math is simple. You just take the annual dividend per share and divide it by the current stock price. This little percentage makes it super easy to compare different dividend stocks side by side.
So this leads to a pretty natural question, right? Should you just find the stocks with the absolute highest dividend yields you can find and pile your money into them? I mean, is a 10% yield just automatically better than a 3% yield?
And the answer to that is a huge, emphatic no. This is actually a classic mistake that a lot of new investors make. You have to be really careful of something called the yield trap.
So here's how this trap works. Remember that formula? Dividend yield goes up if the stock price goes down. So an unusually high yield might not be a sign of a super generous company. It could actually be a massive red flag that the company is in trouble and its stock price has plummeted for a reason. That super attractive high yield could just be a warning that the dividend itself is about to get cut.
Which brings us to a few key risks you have to keep in mind. First, and this is the big one, dividends are never, ever guaranteed. A company's board can decide to reduce them or even get rid of them completely at any time. Second, if you only focus on high dividend stocks, you might end up ignoring entire industries like fast-growing tech, and that can lead to a really poorly diversified portfolio.
So in the end, the question of dividends really comes down to you and your personal investment goals. It's the classic trade-off. What matters more to you? A steady, predictable reward right now? Or are you willing to skip that cash for the chance at more explosive growth down the line? There's no single right answer, only the one that's right for you and your portfolio.